I yelled out, "More cowbell," in the concert, and Dave Grohl responded and he said, "No more cowbell ever."
Hey everybody, welcome back to Foos Files, the podcast for fans of the Foo Fighters. It's Dan here, hope you're all doing great. It's been a busy old one for me actually this past week, so I'm dropping in a slightly different episode to the one I originally had planned. It's something I've been sitting on for a while, where we're going to go back 20 years to revisit the Foo Fighters acoustic tour that they did as part of the In Your Honour album. There's been a few bits going on again since I last podcasted that I haven't fully had chance to catch up with. I think there's a couple of new interviews out with the band and Dave in particular. At the time of recording this as well, they've just released the Tiny Desk performance for NPR Music, which looks a lot of fun, so I'm really looking forward to checking that out later. And then I suppose the big news really is the show at the weekend at Welcome to Rockville down at Daytona in Florida, where they're on the lineup with the likes of My Chemical Romance and Guns N' Roses and Turnstile and The Offspring and loads of others. And the Foo Fighters played on the Friday night. By all accounts, it sounded like the big winner or loser, whichever way you look at it, was the weather, unfortunately. There were huge downpours and thunderstorms, which led to quite a few gaps in proceedings over the weekend. And that had a knock-on effect with the Foo Fighters set, which was trimmed down in the end to 17 songs, which I know festival performances are always a bit shorter anyway, but I guess that's a little bit disappointing. And the set list was largely the same, albeit a truncated version. But they're only able to play 2 new songs, Of All People and Window. But judging by the reaction online and in the press anyway, everybody made the best of it, and what they did get to experience was really great. So yeah, well done to the band really for coming back and saving the day, I suppose, after the site had been evacuated. And I think Dave even commented that we weren't sure if this was going to happen. It's stuffed us up before. People go and hide away in their cars and always wonder whether they're going to come back. So thank you for showing up. But they persisted and they triumphed.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to be here. You know, we played shows before where the weather f***ed it up and everyone goes back to their cars and they wait it out. And then I sit here and I think about it. I'm like, I wonder if they'll all come back. And I look at you motherfuckers and I'm so happy you guys came back for very grateful. Thank you for being here.
So as mentioned, this week we are going to jump back a couple of decades because this year is the 20th anniversary of the Foo Fighters acoustic tour in support of In Your Honour, the double album, of course. The first disc was a rock album, the second one was an acoustic album, and they did a tour to support it, as we know. And it was an interesting time for the band for a number of reasons. A, because this whole acoustic phase, I guess, was a bit of a novelty for them at the time, and it allowed them to bring out a lot of songs that you don't typically get to hear live, such as Walking After You, February Stars, stuff like that. And Skin and Bones, of course, was born out of it, the song itself, plus the live album that they recorded in Los Angeles. And they're also spreading their wings lineup-wise because having performed as a 4-piece for a while, as the incarnation of the band that was Dave, Nate, Taylor and Chris, Pat Smear started to perform with the band again. They were also backed by Rami Jaffee, who wasn't yet an official member, but was an additional musician on this tour. And then you also had Petra Haden on violin and backing vocals. And last but not least, the very accomplished drummer and percussionist Drew Hester, who added percussion on the tour. And he's one of those musicians who's got an incredible CV, which, as well as the Foo Fighters, includes the likes of Joe Walsh. He later went to play with Taylor Hawkins and the Coattail Riders. And his current gig, which he's been in for a few years now, is with the one and only Stevie Nicks. And not forgetting, Drew's also done a bit of studio work with the Foo Fighters too. So he's one of those people who's had a kind of peripheral role in the band's career. So to revisit that period, we're going to drop in a couple of short stories from fans to whom this tour was really special. Because, as you're going to hear, they both had a bit of an ordeal to get to the shows, but it marked for both of them their debut Foo Fighters show. So we've got Ryan Beveridge, a longtime fan from Australia, and then we welcome back to the podcast from Mexico, Cristian Macouzet, who you might remember from a couple of episodes earlier this year when the band played in his hometown of León, Mexico. And he was also back to share a really heartwarming story about Aurora, which has gone on to become his favourite Foo Fighters track. But we'll start with Ryan, who braved the elements to see the band at the world-famous Sydney Opera House. And while his memories of the show itself remain a little sketchy, he'll never forget the lengths he had to go to secure tickets for this one.
My Foo Fighters story, I guess I was in high school, probably about 2004 or 5. I had a girlfriend at the time who was really into them. And funnily enough, at the same time, someone had made me like a burned CD of, it was just their hits at the time in alphabetical order. And they didn't have a greatest hits at this time. It was just someone had just put all the singles together. And I have this very vivid memory of playing Legend of Zelda while listening to the Foo Fighters' greatest hits kind of over and over and over again. So those things went together, and then, you know, sort out the albums and everything. I think In Your Honor might have come out just as I was graduating high school. So that was my new album at the time when I was a fan. So they announced that they were coming to Sydney for the acoustic shows. It's funny, at the time, I remember, I don't know if you ever did like LimeWire or any of those like peer-to-peer kind of things. And acoustic Foo Fighters bootlegs were a big thing on those file sharing sites. And I had a ton of them. I collected them. I was like really into the acoustic stuff at that point. And then they announced the acoustic shows, and that was so exciting. So the girlfriend that I was talking about at the time and her dad were both fans. And they said that, I think it was the first 10 rows were in-person tickets only. You had to camp out at the Sydney Opera House for the tickets. And being a high school student, I could do that, you know, not tied down to any job or anything like that. So off we went to stay the night at the Sydney Opera House. We lived in Wollongong, which is about maybe an hour and a half away. So I can't remember if we drove or took the train. Or I think we drove. And sort of picked our spots in the line. Someone goes around and draws your number on your hand in the line so that if you do leave the line, you've got your spot. And my number was number 46. And later that was my name on the Foo Fighters post board, number 46, because of that. And I remember it being a pretty clear night, and then the rain started setting in and never stopped. People started putting up tarps and stuff, and then the rain just sort of like broke the tarps through. People were getting soaked. And like from further down the line, we were getting word from the Opera House staff that they were like, too bad, so sad, you have to sort of put up. And then I remember it getting kind of dark. I want to say it was like 9 o'clock. This is like almost 20 years ago now, so the memory is getting a little bit fuzzy. But finally they said, all right, you guys can come under the shelter there. I think it's where the front door is, sort of underneath, where it's like a little round car park thing where you can load in, load out. And they finally said, all right, you guys can all come under this shelter thing, which I don't know why they didn't do that in the first place. It's pretty cruel to keep everyone out in the rain. And one thing that really sticks in my mind is we went to the toilets there, the public toilets, and there were people like drying themselves under the hand dryers. That's the only thing you could do, like get your clothes dry under the hand dryers and stuff. And yeah, we just suffered through the night, cold and wet and excited. And I think it was like 8 o'clock in the morning that they finally put the tickets on sale, got our tickets, and then I had to drive home. And I was doing TAFE. I was doing the music course at TAFE there, and I had to go to spend all day at TAFE after spending the night out in the rain in Sydney.
Set list. I kind of forgot to put something in. I did. I definitely didn't forget all of those songs.
That was the ticket experience. I think the show was a few nights later and not nearly as memorable as the ticket experience, but it was not long after the Beaconsfield mining disaster. And there were 3 shows at the Opera House. We went to the first of the 3, and the guys from the mining disaster were at the show. But the next night, that's when Dave wrote Ballad of Beaconsfield Miners, and he played the song at that one show out of the 3. So missed a live debut, but it was cool to be in the same room as the famous guys at the time. And yeah, it was very cool. I also I yelled out, which I never really do. I yelled out, "More cowbell," in the concert, and Dave Grohl responded and he said, "No more cowbell ever." So that's my little claim to fame and my little brush with Mr. Grohl, is that he responded to me on the stage.
On this side of the stage, we got the best fucking percussion player in North America. His name's Drew Hester. Check that out.
I just remember it sounding awesome. I do remember the percussion being particularly loud, which is why I yelled out "More cowbell." I regret that now. It's funny to think about now. But yeah, Drew Hester was the percussionist at the time, and I remember him being very funny. He had like a little solo with his triangle and stuff, and had a little spot in the show. I thought that was really cool.
And he ain't cheap, just so you know. If you want the best fucking triangle player you can find, you gotta pay the fucking price. I'm telling you. We're 3 to a bed at the hotel because that motherfucker costs a lot. Don't even mention the fucking castanets are extra too, just so you know.
So that's Ryan Beveridge, who survived a good soaking to secure tickets for one of 3 Foo Fighters acoustic shows at the Sydney Opera House in October 2006. Now, Ryan, he's a long-time listener. He's also a musician himself, but interestingly, he and his friends also have a podcast called 1001 Songs That Make You Want to Die. You can kind of use your imagination to work out the topic and the format of that podcast. I've listened to a few episodes. It's pretty wild. It's very funny. It's not for the faint-hearted, shall we say. I think they have critiqued a Foo Fighters song. I won't spoil it for you, but yeah, Ryan did say to me when I spoke to him, you are allowed to make fun of the things you love, which is, I suppose, fair justification for that one. So now we jump back a couple of months to August 2006. So from Sydney, Australia, we go to Chicago in the United States via Mexico. And our friend Cristian Macouzet is back to talk about his first Foo Fighters live experience. And as he explains, he just arrived in Chicago where he was planning to spend a little bit of time living, and also set about this dream of just catching more live bands live now he's living near a major city, having not been able to see many of his favourite bands where he's based in Mexico. And the holy grail for him was to get to see the Foo Fighters. So here he takes up the story of what proved to be an emotional night at the Auditorium Theatre on the 25th of August 2006 in Chicago.
So this story goes back 2006. I was studying in high school, and when I had planned when I finished high school that I was going to leave for a short time in Chicago because I didn't know what I wanted to study for a major. So it was a good plan to go to Chicago, practice some English, and also why not watch a lot of great bands that never used to go to Mexico back at that time. Foo Fighters, one of those, of course. So I moved in August 2006 to Chicago, and 20 days later, the Foo Fighters were having this acoustic show. It was the tour of In Your Honor, the second leg, where they were promoting the second album, the acoustic one. So the tickets were completely sold out. But I was like, I'm in Chicago. I've never been this close to go to a Foo Fighters concert, so I have to get a ticket. I was living in a small suburb called Crystal Lake that is actually closer to Wisconsin than to Chicago, but it's still in Illinois, in the very north of Illinois. So I was 18 years old. Back at that time, I didn't even have a cell phone because that wasn't a thing. Google Maps was starting, but you had to print your maps if you wanted to go everywhere because you couldn't see it in your phone. So I went by train. It was the first time I traveled in train to the big city. The guy who I was living with, he printed me some of the Google Maps I was telling you, and he explained me how to get to the theater to maybe get some tickets. So it was like a big adventure for me. I went there very early to make sure I got the tickets. And when I stood outside the theater, there was a girl who was selling tickets. They were $45. That's a lot of money in Mexico. But I was carrying all my budget for the year because if I needed to spend everything, I was going to spend it to see the Foo Fighters. So here in Mexico and in Latin America, it's really common that some people buy a lot of tickets, so they sold out, and then they resell them for a very, very big charge, a biggest price than the original. And this is, of course, not permitted by law, but they don't care and they actually never get punished, so they do it, which is like really, really wrong. But then I was with this mentality. And the girl who was offering the tickets was like, okay, they cost me $45. I have 2 tickets. How much would you like to give me? And I was thinking maybe she wants $90 or more. So I said, no, the $45 the tickets cost. And she was like, oh, okay then. Here are the tickets. But I was like, I only need one. Yeah, it's okay. So she sold me 1 ticket and I was like, this was very, very easy. I got into the theater. And then I saw, and I was like in the 9th floor, like really, really far away. You could see like the instruments already there, like little ants. So I was like, I came all the way from Mexico. I'm seeing the Foo Fighters for the first time. And I'm going to see them like really, really far away. So the whole time, because it was still early, I was looking for people, trying to tell them to exchange tickets with me. And obviously I will pay them the difference and a lot more if they wanted to. But everyone was going with someone. Everyone needed 2 tickets and I only bought 1 ticket. So nobody would agree to exchange tickets with me. So then the show was about to start and I said, okay, it's fine. I got in. I'm going to see the Foo Fighters and it's going to be great, even if I'm very, very far away. So when I was going up the stairs, I watched to the stage for a last time, and then I saw a silhouette of a guy who was alone, sitting on a bench. So I said, okay, this will be my last try. So I approached to the guy and I explained him that I was from Mexico, that this was my first time seeing the Foo Fighters, and maybe I wouldn't see them again because at that time, they never went to Mexico. And if he wanted to exchange tickets, and I will pay him like a big price for that. And he was like, no, don't worry. Please have a seat. The guy who was coming with me couldn't make it, so please sit here. And I was so grateful. That guy was Michael from Kansas. He was 21 years old back in 2006. So Michael, if you listen to this, I'm still grateful with you for what you did that day. And we started chatting and he was like, what's your favorite song? and I was like, Everlong was my favorite song back then, big time. But I didn't know if I liked better Everlong acoustic or the rock version. So that was an acoustic show, so I thought they would play it like Dave with his guitar, and that was it. And I wouldn't mind. I like a lot both versions, but I didn't know what to expect. So I asked him, what is your favorite song? And he told me it's February Stars, that it's not a very common song. But since it was an acoustic show, maybe they would play it. So the show started. On a side note, who opened the show was Francis Black from the Pixies with his acoustic guitar. So that was great also. And then when they say it was an acoustic show, I imagine it will be like two acoustic guitars, maybe a small drum kit or some bongos or something like that. But you know, the Foo Fighters always go big with everything. So the show was 3 guitars. That was the first time Rami Jaffee appeared playing piano and a lot of other instruments. There was percussions beside the drums of Taylor Hawkins. There was violin, accordion. So it was like a very big show. And it was amazing. The versions really blew my mind. And then with this material, they made the DVD and the album Skin and Bones, that now is very famous. But at that time, it was a big surprise that was going to be recorded for us to listen to it and see it like any time we wanted. The show they recorded was the one in LA. I saw the show in Chicago. Some songs were different. That's something that I really liked. For example, in Chicago, they play Floaty, and Petra Haden, the violin player, sang that song. So it was beautiful and it was special, and it was something that we'll never repeat. And they didn't sing that in Los Angeles. So in Los Angeles, they sang some other songs that I really like Ain't the Life or What If I Do, and they didn't sang that in Chicago. But it's okay. It's what happens. You can't watch all the shows, right? So the show was going very, very good. And then when it was like about to finish, they played February Stars, and Michael was so happy, and I was so happy for him too. And that was the first time that I listened to that song, and I really appreciated that song. So now it's one of my favorites also. And after that, they will say, okay, this is our last song. And they played Times Like This. That it's a song that I really love too. But I was like, oh my God, they haven't played Everlong. That was like the third concert of my life. So I wasn't a specialist on concerts. I didn't know they make encores and those things. So they finished Times Like This and they left. And I was like with this bittersweet feeling of, oh my God, this show was so amazing. But they didn't play Everlong, so what the fuck is happening? And then I was telling Michael, they didn't play Everlong. He was like, don't worry. They'll play it. They will come back. Are you sure? Yeah, I'm sure. So Dave came back by himself, and he gave this speech of when he was in Nirvana. He made his first songs, but they never played them in Nirvana because they play the songs that Kurt wrote. But he has this song, A Friend of a Friend, that then they included in this album of In Your Honor, the acoustic album. So he played by himself, Friend of a Friend. And then he said he wanted to yell to us, even if it was an acoustic show. So he played this acoustic yelling version of Best of You, which is great. And then I saw that he exchanged guitars. And Everlong is in a drop D tuning, which is different from the standard tuning. So as soon as he exchanged guitars, I was like, it's Everlong. It has to be Everlong. And he started playing it, and I screamed so loud. Like, even Michael laughed so hard because I couldn't believe it. I just heard the first note of the guitar, and I knew it was Everlong, and I went crazy. And of course, I started crying and everything. It was so emotional. And I was like, well, I guess they're playing it acoustic, which is cool. But then when the silence of Everlong comes, the rest of the band appeared in the stage, and they played this beautiful, beautiful version with all the instruments. And I couldn't stop crying. Even now, 20 years later, it still gets me. I get the chills when I remember that. So it was one of the most life-changing and beautiful experiences, because I never thought I was going to see the Foo Fighters live.
Lovely stuff. And I wonder if Michael from Kansas City does listen to the podcast. Wouldn't it be great if we could reunite him and Cristian after 20 years? I'm really jealous of anybody who did get to go to those acoustic shows. I often go back and listen to Skin and Bones, but also some of the really cool bootlegs that are around from that period. We didn't actually get many shows on that tour here in the UK. I think from memory there are a couple of London theatre shows, and then one in Ipswich, which definitely isn't your typical stop-off on the UK music circuit. Anyway, hope you enjoyed that fleeting trip back 20 years to the Foo Fighters acoustic tour of 2006. Time for me to go off now and catch up with any Foo Fighters material that's popped up over the last week or so. And next week I'll hopefully get up to speed and keep on top of it all. But in the meantime, thanks as always for listening to Foos Files. Don't forget to hit the follow or subscribe button on your favourite podcast app to ensure you never miss an episode. Take care, have a great week, and I'll see you next time.